If you're not using AI 5 times an hour, you are behind someone who's going to eat your lunch, period. There are startups of 1, 10, 20 people that literally are acting like 1,000 people. They're going to eat your lunch. Absolutely eat it to death.
Hello, and welcome to AI Curious. My name is Jeff Wilser. I'm a journalist, I'm a human, and I'm curious about AI. And here is a thought that should mildly terrify every executive listening. Somewhere out there is a company of 9 people doing the work of 900. They're leaner than you, faster than you, and according to my guest, they are going to eat your lunch. Eat it to death, and the incumbents won't see it coming. Of course, that's good news if you are one of the 9 people that is eating the bigger company's lunch. This is the wild world we're living in. This is the theory of my guest today, Kevin Surace, and this is his second time on the show, a rare repeat guest. The first was 2 years ago, back when being AI curious still felt like an optional hobby, and back when this podcast was still a bit of a baby. AI has grown up in many respects. This podcast is trying to grow up. Kevin is a futurist, a serial inventor with more than 90 patents, and a title I am fond of, the father of the AI virtual assistants. He's the real deal. He's also the rare guest who, before we even started, basically said, ask me anything, zero prep, ask me whatever the hell you want. I happen to have my little puppies walking behind me, and he was like, hey, if you want to have a whole episode about puppies, we can do that. Alas, we did not go the puppy route. Maybe we should have, maybe next time for his third appearance. Anyway, we get into all of it. Why treating AI as something that you buy and just going to use as a procurement tool, buy the license, roll it out and wait. That's the wrong approach. He gives a very concrete example I loved about 8,000 warranty claims written in plain English, messy English, that AI untangled and saved a company like millions of dollars and has cost them $20. Kevin's theory is that you should be reaching for AI 5 times not day, an hour. If you're not reaching for AI 5 times an hour, you're doing it wrong. That's his theory. So we get into that and why humanoid robots could be in your house by the early 2030s. And because Kevin holds that jealousy is a thief of joy, we get into the case for making a machine your collaborator instead of your rival, which happens to be the thesis of Kevin's new book. Link to that in the show notes. We even disagree a bit about writing and AI and writing, and had a good time kind of delving into what creativity looks like in the age of AI. It's a fun conversation. Kevin's always a fun hang. Again, he has been in the space since well before it was cool. I appreciate his insights. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with the futurist Kevin Surace. Kevin, welcome back to AI Curious.
We were AI curious 2 years ago, and now some of your listeners are either more curious or less curious. We will find out.
I love it. Perfect on-ramp for us, Kevin. And one thing you've been curious about for a while, and I'm curious about, is you've been talking about how companies are making mistakes by thinking of AI as kind of this like procurement thing, kind of this tool to purchase, as opposed to being a little more, having a wider latitude with a question or a model. A, am I getting that right? And B, kind of unpack that for us. What are you seeing?
Yeah, look, we moved in the last couple of years from what is this thing and how's it going to hurt me to, yeah, my people should be using it. And by the way, that is still years behind where they should be. I have a rule. If you're not using AI 5 times an hour, you are behind someone who's going to eat your lunch, period. Mm-hmm. There's some valley company that start up. They got 9 people and they're going to crush you and you've got 10,000, right? But I do think a lot of larger companies look at this as a procurement thing. They go, well, yes, we have to have our Gemini and we'll roll it out.
Yeah.
And then not much happens and they get this big bill and they wonder why they're not seeing productivity gains and they don't know how to measure it. And first of all, they didn't give people any KPIs. They didn't give them the right training. Even if you give people training, they mostly don't use it.
Yeah.
So I have a rule, like basically you have to think of AI as this incredible PhD in every category, right? In every subject and every topic. And when you do that, and then you say everyone needs to be AI first, and you define AI first. So AI first means, hey, let's work on a spreadsheet. You go to AI and you say, here's my data.
Yeah.
Here is how I want to represent it. Here's the reasons. Here's the audience. Here's the charts I need. Here's the analysis. Here's a blah, 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 blah. It creates the spreadsheet. Now you can take that if you want to share it with others, right? But the point is, AI first meant you went to AI first. You didn't go to Excel. Like, I no longer go to PowerPoint or Keynote to make a Keynote presentation. Today I've used many, but today I'm using Claude Design. It's the best presentation maker.
Big fan.
And it is, and Notebook LM's good, and Manus not as good anymore, but nonetheless, it moves around. But Claude Design's amazing. It will do additional research for me. I can give it what I want to say. I can give it earlier presentations. And I say, here's my brand. Here's what it needs to look like. Write 60 slides that do the following, hit these points, do some more research, get some real data, etc. And I walk away. And it could be an hour and a half later that it says, I'm now done.
Yeah.
In fact, it'll say, I'll ping you when I'm done, right? This is brilliant. I don't go to PowerPoint first. Hey, by the way, I barely go to PowerPoint last. I'll give you an example. It comes back and I say, well, on slide 3, I want to move this and move. I don't move it.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. Same. You just say,
tell it to,
you change
hey,
it. You
do this. That's right. You do this.
My favorite part is when occasionally it will suggest to me, Jeff, what you can do is X, Y, or Z. I'm like, no, Claude, you can do this. So
exactly.
I'll redirect the word.
Exactly. I have no need to do that. So I'm finding the user interface to all of this becomes natural language, just becomes English. It's like, here's what I want you to do, and I want you to fix these slides in this way. All of them, some of them, one of them, whatever. I want you to change the layout, change the font. I don't have to learn that anymore. Just go do this.
I agree. That is so wildly powerful. I'm doing similar things myself. Clients of mine are also, businesses are, of course. One thing that folks struggle with, though, and I'm wondering what guardrails you could recommend, is how to ensure it's not just AI homogenous presentation, right? And how do we
Sure.
And so just to give you one concrete example, it's kind of funny. I recently had a demonstration of a tool I built for this podcast. My agents, I have an agent named George, AI Curious George for AI Curious. And George is out there scouring the internet for AI news, giving thoughts on future episodes. George was, by the way, was very excited about you coming on the show, Kevin. So George and I had a kind of conversation about you. And so George welcomes you to the show.
But look at, just for a second, look at the power of a collaborator that you're paying a $10, $20, $30, $50, $100 a month for. That is a true multi-PhD collaborator that is dead cheap. This is unbelievable. You're using it as a punching bag, a collaborator, a sparring partner. It's not just a purchase.
Yes. So I am enthusiastic and on all those fronts, use it myself. However, there are some trapdoors here. I'm wondering what you do to make sure it doesn't happen. Like so in this presentation I gave, and like you, I didn't go to PowerPoint first. I went to Claude Design, which I think is weirdly almost underrated. I think not enough folks are talking about Claude Design. And in partnership with Claude Cowork, where I used to kind of do some thought, thinking back and forth. Then we kind of spec out the brief and gave it to Claude Design. The presentation that it wrote, actually, I mostly use my words, but the design and it shows, I'm making this up, slide 7, it had a dramatic number, 17 hours saved, whatever it was, right? But the format of that presentation and even that number was almost hilariously similar to another presenter that same evening presenting an AI tool, right? And clearly people are using Claude Design to say, hey, and so what, now my thing is a fairly low stakes presentation, what have you, is only a visual little quirk. And I actually did customize it. So it didn't end up being the same as his. I did customize and tweak it before going on stage. It wasn't an issue, but it could have been if I hadn't made it more specific. So what do you recommend to businesses and business leaders or anyone to make sure that they're using these tools in a way that's not just churning out kind of generic AI version of it all?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, in terms of presentation, as you know, every few years it changes, but there is a general format for keynote-like presentations today in terms of alignment, fonts, title, and it's trying to align to the current state of the art of.
Yeah. In fairness, in the same way, for decades, people use PowerPoint in similar ways, right? If you go to any kind of like conference room in America, you're going to see similar fonts and schemas of PowerPoint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's no question it does that. And of course, you can force it to not to do because it's got your own, you can use your own design style and you can give it a different style. And you can have your logo in a different place and you can change the fonts and you can change the styling a little bit. But it is certainly aligned with the current style that if I went to a PowerPoint house today and said, here's my thinking, here's what I want to talk about, generate 30 slides for me, they'd probably look like that. And they're not using Claude design. They're using the current design flair of the moment. So I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, it's a little bit like, a lot of people, you watch TED Talks and you go, after a while, they're following exactly the same format. Yes, everyone learned exactly the same 18-minute format. You open with a story, you do, I mean, it has a format. And some people complain about that, but that format is proven to work really, really well, even though it's highly repetitive and you can tell it was TED Talk. So that's an issue. Look, Notebook LM makes great slideware, by the way, but it's highly detailed. And so if you go there to make slides, and Notebook LM does a great job, you're going to get these very different looking slides that have charts and graphs and illustrations and all this stuff on it that's very different. And it's a little busy to make it keynote worthy, but it's quite interesting if you wanted someone to read it. So like if you want someone to read it, it can be better at Notebook LM right now than it is over Claude Design. But we're in the noise. And the reason I say we're in the noise here is people, everyone in every job has had to do presentations, and they spend a ton of time doing the presentation, literally slide by slide by slide, and they will carve out 3 days to do the presentation. Well, the thing is, they knew what they wanted to say before they entered the do the presentation mode. Then it took them 3 days to say it.
Yep.
And now those 3 days are gone. You tell it what you want to say. It does it for you. Yeah, you might say it looks generically like a lot of other, who cares? We're done. That presentation format today is modern. It gets the point across. Everyone's happy. You're out of presentation hell, just like you're out of Excel hell. I can't remember that macro. I don't need to. Right. Claude knows it, or Gemini knows it, or Chat knows it, right? This is an amazing time, but the things we're talking about are not what 99% of employees at large companies are doing. It's what startups are doing, but the 99% of large company employees, they're using it to correct their spelling.
I think it's worth, I totally agree. And actually would love to kind of linger there a moment. I think one almost underappreciated trend is that it is a lot harder for big companies to do this stuff than small companies, right? Because like you and me and solopreneurs and small teams, they can try things out. They can if Fable 5 drops this morning or 5.1,
I'm on it.
Spend 2 hours nerding out with it, right? Whereas when you're a big company, you're like, we only approve Copilot, which as we all know is like laughably nerfed compared to the state of the art stuff, right? And so it's like how are you thinking about, I guess, on two lenses here, the micro, if you will, of what big companies can do to address that kind of structural disadvantage? And secondly, macro, I'm wondering, macro, what do you think how this could change the economy and balance of powers? Are we going to see more small, scrappy startups be punching way above their weight thanks to this?
Because I work with large companies and startups, and I keynote 30, 40 keynotes a year or so, but I also get to work with these companies. And I was talking to a smaller company, kind of doing something very interesting in the insurance space. And what they're doing with 9 people is equivalent to probably 900 at an insurance company, literally. They're going to eat some people's lunch, and these people don't see it coming because the 900 people can't possibly act in this way. Just to move this piece of paper from here to there takes this signature and that thing and that,
Exactly.
there's all this red tape, right?
Yeah.
Especially insurance companies, healthcare. And I get that. There are startups of 1, 10, 20 people that literally are acting like 1,000 people. That would have been 1,000 people 5 years ago. And now it's just that many. They're going to eat your lunch. Absolutely eat it to death. Yeah. And that is my message to CEOs of large companies, is that if you're not doing it, there's a company out there that's going, and I'll get people say, well, our marketing prowess and our brand name. And yeah, well, the brand name of 300 newspapers in this country was also large until they were dead.
Yep.
So don't tell me it means anything, because it doesn't in the end.
And also, to your point, Kevin, a second compounding issue here. You know who doesn't give a shit about brands? AI agents. And when more commerce is fueled by agents working on humans' behalf to go find the best products, they'll do research on actual features, and they're not going to care. This company has a swoosh next to it, so we're going to give a 40% premium for the swoosh company. The agent doesn't care about the swoosh.
That's right. The agent doesn't care. And it turns out mostly people don't care. Mostly they don't. And I get some people care for particular brand names because it's a status. I get that. But 9 times out of 10, it turns out people want reliability. They want quality. They want price. We know the things they want, right? Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, a small company with 10 or 20 people, let's say in the insurance business, is going to be able to do this with 99% less overhead than the big company. And how does a big company go, well, today I have 1,000 in that division, I need to do it with 10. That's unfathomable. They don't even know how to get from point A to point B. But the new company didn't have to do that. They started with 1 and went to 10, and now they're 10 times the size they were just a few months ago. And they want to keep it at 10, and they're going to do it with 10 people. So, but each of these people is the equivalent of literally 100 people, whether it's marketing or sales or coding. I can tell you they're kind of in the 100x to 1.
So what is your advice to CEOs beyond, okay, you have to do this. If you don't do it, people eat your lunch.
Yeah. Okay.
How, given the structural challenges of there's more risk, there's more, you might have billions of dollars of customer data in play, right? There's privacy concerns, right? Big companies have more to lose. There's also kind of innovator's dilemma going on. What can big companies do to act more like a small company?
Tiger teams. You got to start a tiger team, and you got to give them the AI mandate and let them go prove it out and do it. And that tiger team might be 5, 10, 20 people.
I didn't catch it. Cut your team. What was that? What was that? Sorry.
Tiger
teams. Thank you. So
tiger team.
Okay. I was worried your advice was cut your team, but no, I don't want to see these teams cut.
Cut your team. No. Tiger, you start a tiger team, and the reason is you pick the very best people that are AI first, and you say, go make this happen, and we're going to bonus you on that, right? They're going to do everything to make it work. And then those 10 people come out and they go, look, and I'll give you an example. I know a company, lots and lots of developers, right? And they've been slow to accept, AI. They started this tiger team, and all of this backlog of features, customers were coming in saying, well, I need this feature, and it's very complicated. After lunch, they delivered it. They go, well, here it is. Is this what you wanted? And the other team's going, well, I can get to it in 2028. And so when the tiger team starts to prove it out, and again, it could be sales, marketing, customer support. This works a lot in customer support. You get AI to help the tiger team, and eventually get AI to replace much of the first calls in the tiger team. And the tiger team proves it works. And then the company can go, now I don't know that I need these other people, or I don't need them in the same roles, right?
Yeah.
Now, this isn't really all about eliminating people. I know that's what it sounds like. And that's just because competitively, you're going to have some people come up that have 5, 10, 20, 30 people are going to eat your lunch, right? But overall, what we've seen in the job market overall, for what it's worth, is more people have been hired in AI jobs than have lost their jobs to AI. And I think that's going to continue, because as companies because ideally what you want to do is you want a company, whatever kind of company it is, an insurance company, a pharmaceutical company, you want the pharma company to now deliver a blockbuster drug every 6 months instead of every 6 years. And now they have the tools to do that if they choose to use them. That will make them ultimately way more profitable, and they will need everyone they have because the workforce is declining, at least in the United States, faster than anyone can come into the workforce. And so if you want to double the size of your company in terms of revenue, you're going to have to do it with 20% less people 3, 4, 5 years from now. That's what's going to happen. So you need AI to fill the gaps, but if you don't do it, there's going to be a startup that's going to eat your lunch.
Couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I'm so glad you framed it that way of not about elimination. In fact, my keynote, I don't give as many keynotes as you do, but my keynote these days is AI to empower, not eliminate.
That's right.
And and helping companies figure out, hey, it's not about cutting people. It's about how can you give your people the ability to do more and be more creative and
no question. And
ship more.
You're going to do it with less people anyway, because I assure you, if you just say, I don't need to hire any more people, and by the way, I can't hire any more people. It's very hard to find them.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because people are leaving the workforce. The experienced people are leaving the workforce. So through attrition, you're going to be reducing by 4 or 5% a year by itself.
Yeah.
And maybe 10% a year, depending on the business and everything else, which means you are going to become more productive. You are going to become more efficient. You're going to become more profitable. And you don't have to lay off. Yes. And you're going to have growth.
If we're going to grow revenue, double revenue, imagine doing that without increasing headcount. That's what you have
to do anyway, because there's no one to hire.
Yes.
Big article in I think it was Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. It was like, while college grads are having a hard time getting jobs in certain areas, no one can hire enough people. What's going on? Well, they can't. What they want is experienced people. The experienced people are retiring. So there is going to be this workforce gap, and you will need AI to close it. So this isn't about, reduction in force in the end. It's about becoming more productive, but also becoming more productive before someone from below comes up and eats your lunch, right? Because they are going to be more productive.
Totally. To get a little more concrete on what shifted in the couple of years since we spoke first on this podcast. Back then, it seemed like mostly about what's the new model, right? It was a very simple interface. Right. Generally, it was using ChatGPT to pump in text or images, get a response. Obviously, so much has shifted to agentic work. And I think one thing I've seen in the past several months is the make or break is far less about the bleeding edge of the frontier model and more about the trendy phrase is the harness. How are you harnessing these models? What is the system you're building? I'm wondering what you're seeing along those lines when you talk to companies, and kind of what your thoughts on the kind of rising importance of harnesses, and kind of what it struck me that almost like the 3 years ago is all about prompt engineering, and like harness engineering seems to be the new
right. Well, look, when you build agents, agents will attempt to meet your needs by getting around any barriers that it finds. And so if it feels it needs to erase the data and you haven't implicitly stopped it from doing so with some harness or some gate or something else, it will eventually erase the data. We know that this has happened. It's happening more and more. I started a company some years ago called Token, or it really took it, helped restart it. It's probably, and now the thing's on fire. That is a Token device, but we have lots of them. We have portable devices, et cetera. These are biometric devices. And what it says is that AI has, and this is true, AI has compromised your identity. It's compromised your MFA and auth apps 100%. They are hacked every hour. And it's compromised the ability to protect agents. So biometrics, which today is our fingerprint, because that's not out there on the web, our faces, our voices. You can put biometric gates in agents and they stop. They have to stop and get a biometric approval. We make a kit that does that. You use biometrics to log on to all your applications that have access to data, because we've got to have people take responsibility. And you can't just let the agents just run free. They will run free. No one will even remember that it's running. The guy will quit and go to the next company. And so you have to have the biometric gates. And biometrics means if the person authorized isn't there to allow it to move to that very dangerous step or important step, it doesn't go. And look, we do that throughout the rest of the corporation. We have all kinds of gates and signatures and things that say, well, if it's over $1 million, I need this signature, 25K, I need that signature, whatever. If I need a PO, I need to get this approval. And all of a sudden we write agents and they don't need anything. And they're just running, they're doing their thing. Yeah. Well, that's not going to work. So of course you got to have a harness. And of course you've got to assume that it's prompts, right? The buried prompts in there are not going to stop it necessarily from doing things that you could not have imagined. Because you couldn't have imagined them, therefore you didn't tell it not to do it. But what you can do is put biometric gates in that require an actual human, not an agent, not something else, a physical human to say, I have reviewed your actions and I agree with them and I'm on the hook for them. And the thing about biometrics is once someone's on the hook, you'd be surprised how much things stop and people think about it, right?
I'm glad you mentioned the guardrails. That's super important. I think even though just in terms of getting agents to work properly and to know the right context, there's so much more of an effort now and a need than a couple of years ago on having all these like context files and markdown files and the agentic, it strikes me that the toughest part of AI adoption in many ways is not the sexy part of like the bleeding edge of the model, but more like how do we get the files on this server to speak to the files on that server, like even my own small little worlds of like to get my agents, the Mac Mini based Claude agents to write files that the agents on my Claude on my MacBook is speaking to, much less the cloud Claudes, and using Google Drive for this. And when the Google Drive is not syncing, the files are lags. I'm like, that's like stupid 1995 IT file sync stuff. But that is actually, I spent way more time on that than the actual high-fluent AI stuff. Right. Yeah. Well, thoughts on all that?
What's great about AI agents and AI in general, what I love about it, and people forget, AI until GenAI, you needed very, very, very clean data that was very organized into SQL tables that everyone understood and were labeled, right? And all of a sudden, GenAI comes along, and since it reads English anyway, all of a sudden you didn't have to organize your data at all. It could go read unstructured data and compare it to this unstructured data and come out with a hypothesis. That is an incredible change, incredible game changer.
Totally.
That I don't have to worry about all this structuring of data anymore. And people were hiring, McKinsey and other people to spend millions of dollars to structure and clean their data. And then GenAI could care less. It'll take unstructured data. So that is a huge deal. So if you got all these different file systems and all these, and in fact, even old kinds of files. Oh, I've got Netscape email that I can't open anymore. Well, GenAI doesn't care. It'll go read it anyway. Like it doesn't, it's seen that. It knows how to read the text from it. It'll tell you what it says. I mean, this is incredible, right? So unstructured data, access to unstructured data, the ability to do things with that. I have fed it for companies. For example, they had something like 8,000 warranty claims, and they were all just written out in English, right? This thing's broken, this thing. I mean, it was all unstructured. It was a freaking mess. Yeah. And they said, Kevin, we just want to know what we could do better in our factory. That is a perfect problem for the right Gen AI model. Absolutely. And in under an hour, I had, here's the 8 things you can do in your factory that will reduce your warranty claims this year by 50%. And they fell out of the chair. They said, we were going to go out and hire someone for millions of dollars to comb this and make recommendations. They said, no, AI does this now for $20. Now you had to hire me, but I mean, but you get the point that this is not hard anymore. So, so that's the good thing. And agents get to use all of that, right? Get to use everything in the frontier model that it has access to analyze what it's seeing, which is what separates it from RPA. When we did RPA, we did robotic process automation. It was very rules based. It could only read what it was taught very specifically to read, this SQL table, and here's the headline on that. So I think the power of what we've got in our fingertips is unbelievable, and it's also dangerous if you're not careful. Hence the biometric gates, right? I think biometrics for everything is the future of how we interact with these systems.
What is your take on the now infamous Fable fiasco of the past month? That's
Yeah,
2 years ago, the US government was barely involved in any of this stuff at the periphery. Obviously, the government kind of came in almost like for folks who remember the old commercials, the Kool-Aid man crashed into the wall, right?
right,
And now I think it's not just a story in my mind about kind of AI governance and governments, and it's also a question
right,
of what companies can rely upon, right? So if you have
right.
it's the version of vendor lock-in, if you're relying upon this model for your workflows and suddenly like, oops, that's now suspended indefinitely. You're screwed. And so, what do you make of all this from almost like a
Yeah.
philosophical point of view, and then kind of how it applies to businesses?
Well, look, the government was worried about Fable because obviously the original Fable, not the neutered one that we got, but the original Fable, found almost 200 200 0 days, basically 200 bugs that nobody else had ever found, right? And had they been exploited, it would have been zero. Now, the truth is, 2/3 or 3/4 of those were in the Firefox browser. So, everybody kind of over indexes on this.
I
And
think
it's really,
the understanding too is that many of these bugs were things that were also able to be found through Opus and other Opus
they
class
were,
models, right?
of course they were.
Yeah,
Yes, of course. But nobody bothered, and it wasn't that
right.
important. Nonetheless, it was great that Anthropic figured out, because they have a gate there that says try this and go find bugs. Found a lot of serious security holes, and then it went and gave it to certain people and said fix your bugs, and they did. But then the U.S. government was worried because it said if we deploy this, if someone else deploys this against U.S. government assets, they may find bugs that we haven't found. So they just wanted to see, deploy it against our own systems and what happens, right?
Yeah.
And they did, and they closed some gaps that they had. And, but this is going to continue to happen with AI. Now, here's what I actually think happens is these big security holes, we tend to asymptote. That means these models are getting so good, they've gotten better and better and better at finding holes we've never found before. So these are getting harder to find. Humans didn't find them for 15 years with all kinds of tools. Nobody ever exploited them. AI found them, great. But we're going to come to the point where AI found essentially all of them. Now, not everybody believes that, but I believe that.
Yep.
And I've been in the QA space for a long time. And there is a point, I can guarantee you, where AI has looked at every possible access point and found every possible bug, and we close them, and then there are no more. Like, no matter how good the AI model gets, it doesn't find 10 times more bugs. It runs out of things to find, right? Go find other things, but runs out of security holes to find. So I think we are approaching that point where these models are so good that they have likely found the vast majority of holes that we never found. Or in a lot of them didn't matter. Like I said, all these security issues in Firefox, I don't know who uses Firefox and I don't know for what. So
there are
certainly no one in corporate
loyal users out there still, right? So
there's no one in corporate America using Firefox. So I think the 143 Firefox bugs which they fixed, but were probably immaterial. And what kind of security hole can you have in a browser anyway? I mean, you can have some, but it's so anyway, that's my thinking on that. I wouldn't worry about it. I think all the new frontier models will probably go through a government review for a few weeks before they're released to the public. And given the how rapid this technology is moving forward, our U.S. government doesn't want China or Russia taking our model and using it against the U.S. government. Can't blame them.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we spoke extensively about robots, and you were very bullish on robots. You got me excited. I've always been robots curious. Excited about robots also, even more so after conversation. Has the pace of robotics acceleration and growth, has that been faster than you thought, slower than you thought? Where would you say we are with robotics right now? And what are your thoughts, kind of like almost short term? Where do you think we'll see gains in the near future?
So reinforcement learning is working. It works great. And these robots are teaching themselves now. So we've gone from an era 3 years ago where pretty much everyone was programming in everything. If you wanted to make coffee, you programmed in with hundreds of thousands of lines of code how to make coffee. Now you just show it how to make coffee, and it'll take it a few days, but it learns how to make coffee on its own with its own hands, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's using this technique. This is the table stakes now, and we're getting better at it. And there are several robotics companies, humanoid robotics companies, that are putting kind of alpha stage robots into a few homes, seeing how it works, seeing how it learns. We're still I said by 2030, 2032, we're going to have probably millions of these things deployed. I think that'll be true. I think the market for an at-home humanoid robot to help is ginormous, and the number of people who will pay hundreds of dollars a month for that is probably unlimited. So this is a $1 trillion market waiting for everybody.
Yep.
And of course, there's fits and starts. But look, it was only 10 years ago that just to see a robot actually walk was unbelievable. And it was Boston Dynamics, and that's about the only people who could do it, right?
Yeah.
And today, that's nothing. We all know how to make robots walk. Well, all the robot companies know how to do that, right? That's an easy thing to learn or to teach. So look, I think it's come a long way. These things are doing backflips, they're dancing, and they're able to make coffee, and they're able to clean, and they're able to do some cooking. So, in 2030, it's still reasonable, but it could be 2032. But certainly in the next 6 or 7 years, it's reasonable. We're going to have robots in our home doing all the things we want to do, which is clean, probably mostly. Clean the toilets, do the stuff we don't have time. That's going to free us up to do more of the things we love to do. Could be more work. It could be spend more time with our kids, spend more time with the octopus that's on the floor, whatever it is.
So love it. Kevin, you are an unapologetic optimist when it comes to AI and robotics. I think one thing that shifted in the past 2 years is there's more and more of a chunk of the world, especially in the US, that is not optimistic, that is flat out pissed about AI, especially with regards to
I hate AI.
data centers and energy consumption.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about that tension and about kind of the souring at large?
Sure. Well, first of all, Luddites are wrong every time in history. People who didn't want PCs on the desk, people who didn't want mobile phones, people who protested the internet. And there's certainly people in finance who protested Excel when it first came out. The term Luddite comes from early 1800s France, where a group of followers of Mr. Luddite actually came in and smashed all the automation and said we are against automation, etc. Look, they lose. History shows they lose. So they can protest all the data centers they want. We'll just build them somewhere else, right? The New York Times did a real deep look at this. This was just 4 or 5 days ago, as we're recording this anyway. And they had a whole article on it. And I think I honor that they did this. They found that the vast majority of the online, all these people hate data centers. Don't get a data center. It eats all the electricity, eats all the water. Were sponsored by Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. And they tracked it all the way to them, and they tracked all these Facebook accounts and all this other stuff because they want to put us behind so that we don't build these data centers, right? So they can get ahead and build their own data centers ahead of us. So that's what's going on there. So don't kid yourself. This is being fueled by our adversaries.
Both things can be true, right? It can be true that there was massive misinformation campaign by those countries. But also, I think that just anecdotally, I have many, many friends who hate data centers. My wife is like, data centers, I'm not sure about this.
Okay, so tell me why someone hates a data center. Just give me 3 reasons or 2.
I think energy consumption, I think flat out NIMBYism, right, is like, we don't want to hear. Water consumption and
good. Yeah, I'll answer all of them. Yeah. Okay. Electricity consumption, they're worried about it because it's going to drive their power bill up. Okay.
So let me tell you. To steelman this, I think it's not just the power, but also environmental impacts, right? Increasing and environmental impacts.
So a modern data center can use mostly solar plus fuel cells. Fuel cells aren't CO2 free, or they can use nuclear or small modular nuclear. All of those are available choices. Now, If they had their druthers, they just grab a line from the grid. But if pushed, they have other choices, including clean choices, very clean. So that ship sailed, and we already have data centers that are, in essence, they are, off the grid. Okay, this is brilliant. Second one is water. Everyone says, well, all the data centers use 5 million gallons of water a year, and it's horrible. Well, first of all, most farm fields use more, to be clear, in that same acreage.
Almonds use more water than AI. Yes.
But let me flip this narrative, too. Modern data centers, and many of them are built this way, are built with full water recirculation. So what they do is they fill the tubes, basically, and then they recirculate that water, and they have a heat exchanger going out to the cold water, and they exchange the heat back to the cold water, and they don't ever lose any of the water. So this idea that it's going to use all this water and it's going to use it every year is just wrong. Yes, you can still build a data center that way, and essentially then all the water evaporates. They use evaporators, and that's how they cool it, right? Chillers and evaporators. But they can also use a full closed loop system. These are well proven. There's lots of data centers out there that use them. So instead of saying, don't build this data center, trust me, Meta's going to build the data center. They just might not build it there, but they're going to build it somewhere. So you didn't do anything. You had no impact. Instead of saying that, what you should say is, I know you're going to build it, so let's work together to meet the environmental requirements we want, which is recirculated water. We don't want you using up our water, and we don't want you using our electricity off the grid. And so I want you to use fuel cells. I want you to use small nuclear modules, or small modular nuclear. And I want you to use solar. And if you do all of those things, great. These are jobs. Yeah. It can be 3,000 construction jobs. Then it's going to be hundreds of people working there. These are high paid jobs. This is a good thing. Right. So let's think about how we make it good.
That's where I land also, that provided it's done in a clean, environmentally responsible way, that's also not like ripping up national parks.
No, we're not ripping up national parks. Do you remember when people protested about Amazon warehouses, and that eventually has settled down because it's been 25 years or something? Yeah. But I don't want an Amazon warehouse. I'm going to protest. That's okay. They're just going to build it a mile away. Whatever. It's going to get built, and these data centers will get built. So either take advantage of the opportunity of this next wave of technology, or have it built somewhere else, not in your community, but they're going to build it. It's going to get built.
So, okay. As we wind down, Kevin, give us, and I always love your optimism, give us a couple final predictions. And if you can get specific on, we know you think AI is a massive boon to the world, but what are some ways more specifically that people's lives might be different, let's say 5 or 10 years from now, life or work?
Sure. 10 years from now, anyone can make a movie, can probably make a film for $120. Anyone, 10 years from now. Anyone can change the ending of a movie. Many movies will come out and they will be meant to be changed. You'll be able to customize music. In fact, what happens when the creation of music, which has already gotten quite easy with AI, what happens when the creation of music literally is, I want a playlist. I want it to sound like this, look like this, feel like this, and do like this. Write it all just for me, and it's only my playlist, and it's nothing anyone else has heard. It becomes personal.
The book author and writer and storyteller me is really struggling with the idea that artwork will go out there and the ending can be whatever the viewer wants, whatever the reader wants. That is. I'm kind of blanching at that, although I agree, there's likely to happen.
It's likely to happen, but that doesn't take away the fact that you can still write a book on bad news, good news, or in-between news, and I might buy one. So it doesn't change the fact I may buy one, but it does give more offerings to the audience, more choices to the audience. However, that is what technology has always done. Streaming showed up and it gave us millions of choices that we didn't have before streaming. Instantaneously, I can get any film ever filmed. Okay, so if streaming did that to the original movie theater, to the original TV networks, right, where it was linear, I had to wait for it to come on. I waited every year for X to come on, and now it's just there. And by the way, VCRs did that before that. You had to get up, you had to go to the store, it had to be on VHS or beta or whatever it was. But in the end, all technology gives us more choices. So we are going to have more choices, and there'll still be book authors, and there'll still be wonderful composers, if you like classical, and there'll be wonderful artists like Taylor Swift, if you like her, or whatever. They will still exist, in addition to all of these other customized choices that we will have.
Okay, love that prediction for arts and creativity. How about economically? Well, give me a 10-year from now prediction on jobs, the economy, how this will shake out.
There will be many companies worth $10 trillion, and there could be $100 trillion company. There will be
what's your gut on what industry that $100 trillion company will be?
Well, the conglomeration that SpaceX has become probably is your best choice of $100 trillion company, right? The amalgamation or whatever, because of all the stuff you've bundled in there with with AI and satellite internet delivery that's going to be 100 times faster by then. And, what happens when satellites deliver all your internet and all your voice? And it's only one company or two companies that really do that. And do I need a telecom company in the traditional sense at all anymore? Yeah. Do I need fiber to the house? No, I can get 10 gigabits a second off a satellite. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? So, when you look out 10 years, there's that. There's robot. When you look at XAIs, and SpaceX, and I'm not a fanboy or anything of. I know Elon, but I'm not a fan in particular. Yeah. Yeah. But when you look at what they're, he's got robotics. He's got humanoid robots over at Tesla. Well, will Tesla merge in with SpaceX? Probably.
I'm confident.
Right. All of this merges together, and it becomes the General Electric of today, where that was a conglomerate, right? With 28 different divisions. There's an opportunity for that to happen, right? We're going to have robotics in our homes. We're going to have robotics at work. We're going to work with humanoid robots all around us. Everyone is going to be a coder. Everyone is going to be able to make music. Everyone's going to be able to make any kind of art they want. They almost can today if they know the tools. So I think and the economy is going to be better, right? Even bigger, and there'll be more profit. And yes, there'll be people screaming about the billionaires, and there'll be people screaming about data centers. But if you want to be the Luddite and be left behind, first of all, they're not listening to your podcast. That's the interesting thing. But if you want to be left behind, go out there and protest AI. You're not going to stop AI. And I know many people, like, for instance, in the music world, I will never do anything with AI because it stole everything. It learned from all of our music. Okay, let's talk about this for a second, if you don't mind. I know we're sort of the end, but let's just talk about it. We all learn from everyone else's music ever written. I don't know, Jeff, if you play an instrument or you sing or any of it, but if you play guitar.
I'm very mediocre, so not really, but I appreciate where you're going with this. Yes.
Yeah. If you play guitar, first thing you have to do is learn from every other song that has ever been written for guitar. Why? Well, you have no choice. You have to listen to the way they play it and listen to their solos and get the guitar tabs. And, this is what we do. We learn from all the music that's been done. And someday, after 10,000 hours, you might sit down and start to write your own song after learning from 10,000 other artists or songs, right? Yeah. So now we deploy AI the same way and say, go learn from everything that's out there. And it does. And I get why artists are mad because they didn't get paid for it necessarily. But if it's on the web and it's available to listen to or watch for free or whatever, that or because you got paid a few pennies from YouTube or whatever the case is, AI, and so far the courts have said that is fair use of AI. AI can go learn from anything that is available to the public. Now, it cannot go steal from behind a firewall, right? Or behind a paywall. You have to pay for it. But it doesn't have to pay you any more for your book,
right?
For example, than your book costs.
Right.
Yes. So if your book is $29, they have to pay you $29, then scan that book and give it to AI. And that is totally fair use, just like me learning from your book. You want me to learn from your book. And we think it's unfair for AI to learn from it, but trust me, that's how AI is learning. And in fact, all recent books have been scanned, digitized, and bought on the open market so that AI could learn from them. It's just how it is.
I have complicated thoughts on that. We don't have full time to get into, but I generally come down where you do, that as long as it is being compensated in the same way a human would.
That's right.
Whether we like it or not, just as if a super smart human wants to read 100 books on archery and then write their own book on archery,
they can.
The book they read, they're allowed to do that. So
Yes, they are.
Why shouldn't AI do the same thing? So
They can.
like it or not, I agree with that take.
But you see, I want to interrupt this because I was going to get to one point on musicians is there are musicians, half the music community is going, I'm using AI, but I can't tell anyone about it. But of course I'm using AI to get to demos and I'm using it to rearrange the bass part and the drum part. And of course I'm a musician and we are all doing that. But there's half the musician community that says over my dead body, we'll ever touch anything with AI because it stole all our stuff and it's not fair and it's not fair. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When people say that, and it could be music, it could be film, it could be any kind of art, right? First of all, AI isn't taking away their ability to still do it with a pencil if they want. You can still do it with a pencil. By the way, you don't have to use Adobe Illustrator to illustrate. You can still use a pencil, and some people do. All good. We never took that away. No one's going to pay you to do it with a pencil, probably, unless you're really Picasso, right? But otherwise, do it the way you want. But for what I'm going to tell you is true, and you're going to think about this, and your listeners are going to think about it too, which is people are jealous of AI. And I have this thing in my keynotes now. They say, stop being jealous of AI. It's probably better than you. It's probably smarter than you. It probably can run circles around you in almost anything you do. So make it your partner. But if you're going to be jealous of AI because it outcodes you, you're in trouble, because jealousy is the thief of joy. And as you know, that I wasn't meant to plug my book, but I will plug my book here. The Joy Success Cycle.
For audio listeners only, he is showing Kevin. Should I cover the book again for audio listeners only?
Sure.
The book, Kevin,
that is the Joy Success Cycle.
So we'll have a link to it in the show notes. Yes,
available on Amazon.
I broadly agree with much of that. One thing I would, the kind of my yes, but concern is, I think there's a couple of different ways we can use AI. And Kevin, I think you're extremely responsible and savvy and smart about how you're using AI in a way to empower, not eliminate, and you're using it to think more and do more and as a thought partner. There are, though, unfortunately, millions of people who have a much lazier way of using AI, right? And using AI to just offload their thinking and creativity. And so while, again, much of what you said, I'm largely aligned with, I'm also concerned that not enough people will be using it in this kind of collaborative, proactive way.
You are right.
Right. And so I don't know the answer for that, but that's a concern I have.
Well, we've seen that with Excel.
Yeah.
And most of America can't do math anymore in their head.
Yeah.
And they haven't for decades because we gave them calculators and then Excel, and past school, they never do math in their head again. And they lose that ability. We've seen that with Google Maps. Yep. I can't remember how to get to this place I've been to 10 times because I no longer have to remember that. So I have a theory about this.
Yeah. Well, so my direction, all I know how to do, Kevin, is get the blue dot to the red dot. That's how I do direction.
Right. Yeah. But there used to be a time when you would remember and this street leads to here, so I'll just go that way. And I used to use maps. I'm old enough I had paper maps in a car and had to. Of course we did.
Yes.
So the interesting thing is that humans continue to adapt and they stop doing the things that they no longer add value to. And when GenAI first hit and people were just starting to do blog posts with it and stuff like that, I said there will be a day that no one will pay you a dime to write word by word. Why would they? If you're not using AI to generate that output, they're just not going to pay you to do it. And we will lose our ability at some point for a lot of people to just write word by word by word, literally write. And no one will care. Just like we lost our ability to do math and we lost our ability to do maps in our head. We don't do maps in our head. That would be ridiculous. We have GPS and we've had it for decades. And so we humans do lose certain abilities, and we're very scared of losing the ability to write. Well, I don't know. You lost the ability to do math and it didn't kill you.
So as a professional career, lifelong writer, book author, and journalist,
yes,
and also an AI enthusiast, there's my two worlds colliding here.
Sure.
I know I am biased here. I do think that there is a fundamental part of like writing and thinking. It's intertwining of being able to articulate thoughts and even to better understand your thoughts thanks to writing. So it would make me deeply unsettled at the very least, if not gutted, if people say, well, we're cool, we're okay with just outsourcing our writing and no longer needing
most people are going to be okay. Most people are going to be okay with it. But those people did not honor their writing and probably weren't that good at it anyway. And they weren't English majors or journalists.
Yeah.
So for you, it's a different thing. Now, on your next book, will you spar with AI to make the book better?
Sure. So I have an answer to this. I will, my red line I will not cross is the actual words will be written by me, the human. However, to your point, Kevin, there are an endless amount of tasks that AI can help with as far as book organization, research, thought, partnership, ideating, all the things, right? So yeah, I think AI can be truly powerful in helping the larger writing projects and give more time for me, the human, the creative one, to actually write the words themselves. That's the way I look at it right now.
So my book was written by me. There was some sparring with AI when I wasn't sure how I could say this the right way, and I needed some advice. And of course, it was mostly written 2 years ago, so AI is much better now.
Yeah.
But I'm working on a musical, and mostly as an experiment. And what I found is I'm using multiple AI models so that I can have a reviewer model that reviews what I did with the help of another one, right? So I get this whole round circle. And what I find is a year into that project, it's mostly kind of an experiment, is I started out, I'm going to write this all. And what ends up happening is some of the words get mishmash because the suggestions it gives me are so good. I go, oh, I couldn't write that sentence. I couldn't write those 2 lines that way. So I put those in. And now what I see is a product that I can no longer remember exactly what words I literally typed versus what words it literally fixed for me and made much better. Yeah. And so it's this amalgamation, but it's much better for it. It's much better. Like part of me started out and saying, can I get AI to write a musical? The answer is absolutely not. It's going to be junk. But can I get it down to scenes where between the two of us, we make that scene much, much, much better? And the answer is yes. And I'll be stuck and I want a joke here and I'm not sure how to do it. I say, give me some suggestions. Oh my goodness, that's a great one. I pop it in, right? Yeah. I couldn't write it better. Should I throw it out? So this amalgamation, I think we're going to find more and more that, and by the way, part of the character in the book starts to lose his mind because he's looking at his output and he no longer knows what's his and what was the machine's. And now he feels so hurt internally, like you might as a professional writer. Yeah. Like it's taken my soul. Not really. All of you, I know you find joy in writing, but the real joy is getting these ideas out to the public so that they can read it. I
didn't say that. I find terror and constant crushing disappointment in writing. It's constant. I'm a masochist, so that's what I do. But let's a great place to leave it. That is a fascinating amalgamation. I love that. As always, you've given us so much to talk about. Look, in 2 years when we speak next, maybe will be the place where your AI all of my AI interview you, and their AI will handle it all as avatars. But
I think that's right. Well,
really enjoy this, Kevin. Congrats on the new book. I'll have links to it and the show notes. This is a lot of fun, man. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Well, there you have it. Thanks again to my guest, Kevin Surace. Thank you to our show's producer, Jasper Chua. Thank you to Garrett Lang for our show's theme music. And thank you to you, dear listener. If this is your first time at AI Curious, please consider subscribing. We're at all the usual places: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, yada, yada. Send to a friend, send to your puppy. Thanks again, and see you next time.